Down the stretch we come. Implicit Bias is rolling towards the end of another year, getting closer to our 250th episode. That's a lot of whiskey. It's a lot of radio edits for the Rustic Renegade. It's a lot of opinions. It's a lot of caramel, not caramel. It's a lot of solving the problems of the world. It's a lot of the crew, and it's a lot of listening time. It's a lot of our and your evolution. I am your host, Kevon Bordelon, and as we get closer to the end of another year, as we prep for Christmas, the second most important holiday in Christianity, we like to reflect. We like to look back upon maybe where we've been, where we're going. We've made significant changes in the last year, as a matter of fact. Implicit Birthday was moved to Rock and Bowl, whole new venue. We had Congressman Clay Higgins on the show in the last year. We moved to a new Mr. Lester's top secret podcast lair, and we made significant changes to the TSPL. Now, those of you who are watching on YouTube, on X, on Facebook, and that in itself is actually a change, you are now able to see Implicit Bias, not just listen. So please find us on our socials, like, follow, subscribe, depending upon the platform, which brings us to a very specific thought. Now, this thought, two words which I'm about to speak, will certainly offend, which is something that really we've never shied away from on this show. So if your feelings get hurt, we actually are sorry, but what we're about to say is the truth. And the truth is this. Pretty matters. Now, how did we get here? What made us think of this? What does it mean? Is it our lack of pretty on this show that made us realize this? And of course, we know, except for the Rustic Renegade Caleb, none of us are pretty. But no, it's not that. What made us think that what's pretty matters is pretty straightforward. It was an observation of everything going on around us. It was a discussion with a particularly attractive human being, realizing that the person that we were speaking with had the basic IQ of a turnip, which, by the way, is lower than that of a carrot. And realizing that the person we were speaking with, even though that person really couldn't think their way out of a paper bag, would still have an easier time getting promoted, getting through the proverbial doors or ceilings simply because they were physically attractive was absolutely true. Now, this creates two more thoughts which need to be clarified. More importantly, first off, in many ways, pretty is subjective. What one of us finds attractive, others won't. And that's not just okay. That's actually the way it's supposed to be. Until the second thought, or axiom, which is this. Some characteristics, physically, which we can't help or change, are universally attractive. And some other things are universally unattractive. Meaning that beauty, while partially subjective, is actually quite objective. Think about it. Some people walk into a room and everyone just goes, dang, that person is beautiful. Which also means that some people walk into a room and the collective human consciousness in the space gives the Chris Tucker, damn, simply because they look like they've got a face that could really stop a perpetual chain of reaction of a nuclear reactor. I mean, here's the disclaimer, however. And the disclaimer is really important. Being physically attractive should never correlate with perceived value or worth of the human being. But the simple reality of the situation is this. Pretty matters. Even if you're a terrible human being, what we see, it's our first impression of you and others. And if that impression is pretty on the eyes, we're actually inclined to give that person the benefit of the doubt. It doesn't mean it's right, but it's what we do. And it's a shame and a blessing all at once. It's a shame because we can pass over some truly great people because pretty matters. We can also let our guard down for some of the worst people on the planet because they've got a great smile. We do this because it's just in our nature. After all, Samuel 16:7 reminds us the Lord does not look at things man looks at. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. And what's worse is that people, we go way past just looking at the appearance. And this is how we end up with implementing terrible ideas. See, packaging is a thing in marketing and media. All the ideas, opinions, and so forth are tied up with a nice little bow, with the proverbial beautiful wrapping paper, only for us to find out that what's inside? A mid-sized pachyderm defecated inside the box for us to only find later. It's how we end up with politicians, actors, members of the media who won't show you exactly who they are. As a matter of fact, it's how we ended up with the Obamas and the Bidens. Too many people didn't like the raw, sometimes ugly truth of our now soon-to-be 47th president, instead choosing the smiling, passive, alternative opinions which were available only for those to reveal themselves as snakes in the grass who were kissing babies while stealing their lollipops. Pretty matters. It's also a blessing, though, because many people, well, they'll show you they're ugly as soon as they walk in the room without even saying a thing. See, there are so many people who have beautiful smiles, beautiful eyes, and they choose to make themselves unattractive to what people inherently identify as beautiful. In other words, they're beautiful on the outside, but some people decide to show you the defecate on the inside of the box. So what's the solution? Well, it's actually really simple. We should make our exteriors emulate the beauty of all of our interiors. Sometimes that's scary for us because we're all really just trying to be Christian or simply a good person. But let's face it, we're all jacked up like Motley Crue on a 5-day bender in our own way. And that is too often where we focus. Instead, this holiday season, focus on what's beautiful inside of everyone. Focus on what we do inherently that is good. See, when our exterior is a reflection of what's good, of what's true on the interior, then the smile on the outside can be just as beautiful as what's inside of all of us. So as we wrap up 2024 and head into what is sure to be just a tumultuous 2025, the world could use a lot more of those smiles, even if they are whiskey-induced, and that's our implicit bias. Walker Griffon is sleeping it off on this week's episode of Implicit Bias. Yeah, Walker, we're going to throw you under the bus. Especially the fact that you had it so bad that you legitimately can't sample weekly whiskey with us here on this episode. What do you have to say for yourself? I mean, you did this in front of your girlfriend, fiance, which one is it?
Girlfriend.
You sure about that?
Yeah. I am.
I'm okay. This is Implicit Bias. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. I'm not trying to get Walker in trouble because we know that Kennedy's listening. Kennedy, if you're listening, you can take it out on him later. We have with you a great crew here in the TSPL for you this week. Sitting at the bar, the Mr. Lester's TSPL Guests of the Week, and I guess that I didn't rename that. That just happened. We have Brian Harmon of Dupree Carrier Godshaw, and we have Renee Girard, Louisiana's only master tobacconist from Piper's Haven. Gentlemen, how are you all this afternoon? And we're actually recording on an afternoon so we can kind of get ahead on some episodes and have some more fun.
It's great. We're day drinking again.
I was waiting on somebody to call that out. I was like, that's the real secret. We just wanted to do this during the middle of the day because holidays happen and you get that opportunity, if you know what I mean. Caleb Morse, who has brought his own glass today.
Yes, I did.
You did? Are you excited about your rock heavy tumbler over there in matte black?
This is I love it because it reminds me of I think it was Raiders of the Lost Ark when they're looking
Last
for
Crusade.
And when they're looking for the chalice, Christ chalice. Because I look down and I'm like, it's unassuming, and then you get this beautiful golden color inside.
And that would be called the Grail, Christ chalice.
Yeah. Sorry. Look, I was a child when that came out.
Please. You're still a child. We have a lot of great stuff to tend to this week. We also have some great weekly whiskeys. You can actually see our weekly whiskey on the bar. So I want to start there because this weekly whiskey is one that typically, and I'm going to kind of give away for the What Would You Pay championship belt chain from Box Drop a little bit of a hint here. Barrel bourbon is a whiskey that you will typically pay a C note for. I mean, pretty much everything they roll out is in the $100 range, somewhere around that, and that's usually where it starts. Barrel has decided to do a little bit of change with regards to how they offer their distillate. They are now selling and offering a 5-year whiskey, and it's a little bit more affordable. Now, we've had some barrel offerings here on the show. So, Caleb, you actually have it written on the Implicit Bias Whiskey Tasting Journal. Tell us a little bit about this 5-year offering from Barrel.
So it's 100 proof. This is a standard 750. It's a blended, right? Well, I think most of Barrel stuff's all blended.
Yep.
They do offer, I think, a single barrel as well. It's to be a blue label, maybe.
Depends.
But on the nose, man, it's really thin, fleeting on the nose. Like it's like whenever you consider that you're going to go to, I might go camping next week. No, I changed my mind. That's how much of the woods it smells like, you know. Maybe even a little bit of light brown sugar.
Yeah.
On the nose, and then on the palate, it's soft, it's delicate, but it's thin. Then I get hints of black pepper, a little spice in the middle palate, followed by like a soft like watered down vanilla. So it's not a lot of vanilla that I'm getting. I'm not getting caramel or anything else, but I'm getting like a very soft, thin vanilla, not overpowering at all, and it doesn't linger long. This would be a good one to bring Thanksgiving, which was yesterday for us now. This would have been a great one to bring out there to have a lot of family members try, to have them like partake in. That it's not overly aggressive, and at 100 proof, this would be a good like every person's drinker.
So, in your opinion, would this be good to like sit Walker down and tell him, let's have a cigar, let's finish a bottle, make him drink till he pukes? I'm just hypothetically saying that could happen.
It would be very easy for that to happen, especially with Walker, because apparently it doesn't take much to twist his arm.
Yeah,
just tell him you can't date my daughter unless you pass out. So.
All right, let's go to the bar, see what the gentlemen at the bar think. Who wants to start off on this one?
This one is I like this one a lot better than the other 2 barrels we had. A couple of years ago, we did some barrels, and they were like rocket fuel. This one is very drinkable to me. It's very smooth, more in my wheelhouse. I really do like this one. And like all the descriptors that Caleb said, all the flavors in that, yep, it's there. It's light and good to drink.
So I actually am with you here, Renee. I get, and for those who don't and didn't catch those episodes where we had those whiskeys, by the way, you can go back and find them on our socials. Anywhere where you get podcasts, please go subscribe. Hit the follow, like button, all that stuff. It helps the show, helps bring more of us to you, if that's what you like. But we actually did a couple of barrels on the show that we had one that was a hazmat, one that was 140 and change. We had another one that was 130 and change. Yeah. So the proof on those was significantly different than this 100 proof.
Well, and the price was significantly different too.
Yes, yeah. We actually gave a bottle of that away, which was really cool. And the person who won that absolutely adored it.
And you had to give him a $10.99 with that one too, because it was so expensive.
Yeah, almost. Almost. All right, Mr. Harmon, what are you thinking?
I agree with what Renee said completely. I wasn't a part of the tasting those shows where y'all tried the barrel proof, but that was my early exposure. That was my same experience with.
Yeah, keep convincing yourself of that. We just didn't like you enough to invite you to that show.
There's some reasons about it I won't get into on air. But
kidding.
I like this one a whole lot. But my first time, I've kind of swore off barrel. I didn't care for the first couple of bottles I tried. I never bothered bringing something into the house. Didn't like the oaky, spiciness to what I had tried. But this one's easy drinker. Just like Caleb said, it would be something I would share with people that aren't really accustomed to bourbon. It's easy drinking.
I actually am going to disagree with Caleb on a couple of points here, just as far as how it hits my palate. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't think this is thin. I don't think this is thin at all. I get really nice caramel flavors on this mid-palate. I don't get a lot front of the palate, but mid-palate, I get nice caramel flavors. I do get that light vanilla, but not necessarily thin. And I get a nice long finish off of this. This sits on the palate for me for a while before I need or even necessarily want another sip. To me, this is, and I haven't said it in a while, this is bourbony McBourbon to me. when I think about bourbon and the flavors that I expect and the profile that I expect, this hits every single note that I'm looking for. And at 100 proof, it's enough, but it's also not overdone. It's not underdone. This, to me, is proofed really well. And Barrel has a really nice tradition almost of blending things at an exceptional level. I don't think this falls off of that at all. I think this upholds that tradition, and it shows a really nice offering from Barrel, in especially to your point, for people who might be new, as well as people who really like bourbon, who have been around it for a while. This, to me, is a consistent, easy drinker that hits just right.
So, Kavan, what you're saying, this is Goldilocks whiskey?
It almost
right.
is.
Yeah.
It almost is.
Yeah.
This is, if you're solely a proof hound, it might not be enough.
No.
Well, and even then, if it's not enough, it's still delicious. It's still
Oh,
very
yeah.
good. You know?
It's
and
very
that's-
drinkable. It's very good.
That's what I like about all the other barrels is the robustness of flavor. I like that high proof. I like what you're getting. And this one, I'm not chasing anything, but perhaps it is my own bias.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not chasing anything. It's there. I would just like more prevalent. But this, like I said, is a good every person drinker.
And that's the other side. So if you're a proof hound and that's all you are, this might not
Yeah.
be enough. If you really don't like high proof whiskeys, this might be what starts to get you there. Because this at 100 proof starts to actually drink like about a 105 to me to a 107. I get a little more of the bite with this that you don't get with a 90 or a 95 or something like that a lot of times. So I find this exceptionally well balanced.
Well, and maybe by my second glass, I'll have a different opinion.
Or your third or your fourth or
Well,
your
you
fifth, which is what happens here in the Top Secret Podcast.
That's what
layer.
happens. And
Yeah.
Walker's not partaking, so someone's got to drink his portion.
No, I see Walker has got you know it's bad. Okay, this is fun. You know it's bad when Walker's got a bottle of water and he is gingerly sipping the bottle of water.
I bet he didn't even wake up at 5 o'clock this morning.
Oh, I guarantee he didn't wake up at 5 o'clock this morning because I texted him at about 9:30 or so, and it was like 10:30 before he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get that done. It's coming out this morning." It might have been a little earlier than that I texted, but normally when I text Walker, and this is why Walker is a lot of times a credit to his generation. When I text Walker, especially if I know it's during business hours, I do my best not to text like when it's Kennedy time. So I try. I try to make sure that I text him during business hours, and he's almost always Johnny on the spot. He's go ahead and text me back. This morning I was like, oh, I wonder how Walker's feeling this morning. Like the thought crossed my mind
Well,
when it took him that long.
he did. He and you had a recent celebration, so I'm surprised you're not a little hungover as well.
I've just been doing this long enough. I mean, that's
Yeah,
that's
valid.
the good and the bad part.
You probably had to get an IV anyway, so
No IVs.
well,
No
Kavan's a
IVs.
grown up. He knows better now.
you know what?
Walker hadn't learned that lesson yet.
I think what Kavan has is it's Centrum Silver is what gets you. That's the cure for his hangover.
Hey, whatever works, right? Whatever works. That I'm willing to do any of it. It does not matter. And Renee, I appreciate you for saying I'm a grown up because that is highly debatable. You can ask my wife.
Well, yeah, but I mean, grown up in age, not in height.
This is true too. This is absolutely true. No doubt. No doubt. Look, I'm happy to be 5'8" on a good day. I embrace 5'8" on a good day. Some of us were not blessed with good looks or a fully functioning brain, right? Some of us need to be, yes, it's from the water boy. Some of us just have to embrace what we've got and work with that, and that's what we do. So speaking of that, let's go ahead and start to work with what we've got in our glasses. Rate this on the Morse Whiskey rating code. Is it a red? I wouldn't drink it even if it was free. Is it a yellow? I would only drink it if it was free. Is it a green? I would buy this. Or is it a blue? I would seek this out. Let's start at the bar. Who wants to go first? Renee?
This one I'd definitely give a blue to.
Okay.
I like this one. It's very smooth. It's not rocket fuel, which, my wheelhouse is normally 95 to 110 proof. The flavors are just great on this one. And I can tell you right now, Walker's rating this one a red because he won't drink it, and it is free.
Yeah, and Walker won't drink anything right now, so everything's a red. All right, Mr. Harmon.
I'm a blue as well. I don't have a bullet in the collection. I think this will be the bottle that I actually seek
You mean a
out.
barrel?
A barrel.
Come on,
excuse me.
Triple H.
Sorry.
Come on, Triple H.
But it's a solid blue for me.
Yeah. Okay. Caleb?
It's a green. This is a green for me. Like, I've had their other stuff, and to me, those are blues. This is a green. This is a good one down the middle. A great way to just open the door to a really bad habit.
Well, that tells me that it's a blue.
No.
Yes. This
No.
to me.
Because if this is next to the other one, I'm going to buy their other bottle at probably double the price.
Caleb, let's be honest. You're buying both bottles.
Yeah. Well-
Let's be very honest.
And it's more like quadruple the price.
Yeah.
You know,
well, okay. So I'm gonna finish the rating here. I gotta give this a blue. I do, and here's why. It hits all the notes. Is it perfection maybe in any of the notes? Not quite, but it balances out everything else so well that this to me is one that you could give to an experienced bourbon drinker, somebody who drinks it a lot. You can give to somebody who is just getting into the game, somebody who says, I don't think I like bourbon. You can give it to somebody who says, well, I like ryes. I don't think I like bourbons. Anybody could drink this and enjoy it. To me, that is why this is a blue, and it will go into and be a part of Deep Blue, the Implicit Bias Infinity bottle, which you can get at William S. Nacol Jewelers. They have the Waterford Crystal, which we may need to find and whip out here at some point on the show, just so people can see it, because it's getting to that time, and a lot of our whiskey drinkers are looking for stuff like that. So we know that it's a blue. Now the question is, what would you pay for the winner of the What Would You Pay Championship Belt chain? So Renee, if you would hold up the box drop, what would you pay championship belt chain here in the Mr. Lester's Top Secret podcast layer? And Renee, we're gonna let you go first. What would you pay?
This one I'm looking at 85.
$85. Let's stay at the bar. Triple H.
I'm gonna say 52 based off of the information, the little hints you had dropped earlier.
Okay, so he's using not necessarily what he thinks of the liquid, but the hints that I dropped. I get that. Walker, you want to play?
Yeah, I'll play.
No, you don't get to play because you're not drinking. Caleb.
I agree with Renee. I think it's like an 80. I think it drinks like 85, $90. But, man, $68.
So the What Would You Pay Championship Belt Chain sticks with our WWE member of the crew this week. This is a $52.99 bottle of whiskey
That's redonkulous.
at our weekly whiskey partners. Yes, so Triple H, you get to put it on.
Thank
you
you.
get to wear the What Would You Pay Championship Belt Chain presented by Box Drop of Lafayette. What now?
I have to say, he didn't come out and say $50-something, but it was anybody else listening? I was. Okay.
No, I said
No,
it's around
we
50
don't
is what I
ever
actually
listen
said.
to Kavan.
No.
I didn't know you were an adjuster too. Okay.
I don't listen to me, so it's okay. It's quite all right. I don't listen to me. Nobody listens to me. Apparently you did, and see, you get to wear the belt chain because of it. But that goes well.
Nailed it.
We need some like walk-up music for him on the show when that happens. Like we need Triple H's walk-up music, or like the D-Generation X music.
Look, I'm going to hijack the show for a minute because I've been adamantly, and I've voiced it. I don't like the Triple H, but a name. I was against it at first, but something was brought to my attention specifically about the man. And Walker, get ready. I think it's allowed, but he is credited with basically the suck it that we all know and love.
Oh, yeah.
So you
Yeah.
know what? I'm okay with that. I respect that.
And you know what we got for you? I got 2 words for
I
you.
know it. Let's hear it.
Yeah, so well, him and Shawn Michaels were the ones I think who originally started that whole, we got 2 words for you, and we know where that leads. Which means we got 2 words for you on this segment of Implicit Bias, which is actually more than 2. We'll be right back because we've awarded the What Would You Pay Championship Belt Chain. We have awarded a blue to this barrel 5-year-old bourbon whiskey. We're going to talk about why pretty matters when we come back on this week's episode of Implicit Bias. Surprise guest on this week's episode of Implicit Bias. I'm your host, Kavan Bordelon, and he is the man who makes your liver hurt. Kenny Michael, Big Whiskey, has shown up this week in the TSPL. I don't know how he found the Mr. Lester's TSPL down somewhere in downtown Lafayette, but he found it, and when he does, he always shows up with liquor. What you got, Renee?
I think he just smells the whiskey.
It could be.
I mean, knowing Kenny, he just goes and he smells the whiskey. And I think he's got a tracker on your truck.
No, that's probably the case
the
too.
tracker is in Caleb's beard.
Would he be like Old Red, the bloodhound that smelled him out? No. No.
That's reliable.
There you go.
No, that was his grandpappy.
He is Kenny Michael. He is the state representative for Deutsche Family Wine and Spirits, which means that he handles all Redemption, all Josh, all Bib and Tucker, all this stuff, and he is family. He just is. I've known Kenny for longer than he cares to recognize. We've been friends for a very, very, very long time, and it just so happens that he is also known as the Liquor Fairy, because when he shows up, liquor, poof, magically appears. And that's what happened when he showed up at the Mr. Lester's TSPL this week. Kenny, tell us about what we got in the glass for this one, because this Redemption is a little different.
It is. So this is our once-a-year release, although I will say that it's been a few years since our last release because we have changed bottles. This is Redemption Surly, and if you look at it, it's spelled L-E-E, whereas in wine, and that's just a nod to the Southern heritage of whiskey. And there is a winemaking technique that's made famous by the French called Surly aging. And that is the lees, where they will let the wine age on the lees, L-E-E-S, and that is the dead yeast cells. And what that does is that basically brings an elegant mouthfeel, sort of a creamier mouthfeel to the wine. And it's a way to change the expression. Yes, I said creamy mouthfeel. And the French have made this a very common practice, and it is done a lot in wine. And there's some American winemakers that do it as well, but it has never, ever been done in the whiskey world before. So this is a one of a kind. It's the first of its kind. And what they do is they take the back set, which is the lees, the dead yeast cells, and they actually age this for the entirety of its aging, the 4-year aging, with the lees in the barrel. And they will roll the barrel every so often to have the lees kind of fall into to the liquid, and it holds in suspension for a while as it settles down to the bottom again before they roll it again. And it just makes a very elegant expression of a different kind of whiskey than we're used to. And then, of course, they do filter it when they bottle it. But it is aged for the entirety of its aging, barrel aging, on the lees, which is a very unique process. And it's all laid out on the bottle, which the bottle is beautiful. I love it. It's a painted bottle. They put all that information on there. It is our standard Redemption Rye mash bill, 95.5 rye. And that is an MGP product. We've never hidden that, and we love MGP. They make a great product. And they proof it from 92, where our normal rye is, to 99. So coming in at 99 proof, aged right at 4 years, right around 4 years average age. Could be a little bit more, could be a little bit less, but typical average age about 4 years.
This is a fantastic Christmas gift. If you've got somebody out there who is a bourbon whiskey drinker, they're looking for something unique that you're not going to find all the time, that is truly off the beaten path. Number one, the liquid that's in the bottle is delicious. It is fantastic. The bottle is fantastic presentation.
I don't know, man. Like, I think you'll make it too wordy. Like, there's a lot on that bottle. I can see like paddles and barrels, and like the only thing you're missing is the hand and the names of the name of the guy who turns them.
It's on the back.
Yeah. It's beautiful though.
Yeah, it's a beautiful bottle. It's a beautiful presentation. And I'm curious as to what we think of it here in the TSPL. Caleb,
This is a blue.
You're on your second, I believe, of
this.
this.
My second of this one. This is a blue. This is just wonderful. It's not floral, but it's got like a flowery hint to it. It's very, very soft on the palate. I love the proof on this. I think at a higher proof, it wouldn't be what it is.
So you're saying it's flowery. So when you have finished the bottle, you have deflowered it?
Okay.
I'm asking. I'm asking. It's a legitimate question. People want to know.
I think that's the right term. Yeah. And this thing is just like, it hits on all cylinders. It's very, very drinkable. It's not overly aggressive, and the flavor profile that you get out of it, and I don't want to say creamy mouthfeel, but man, that's the best. That's the best way to say it. It really is.
Yeah, it is. It really comes off as thicker, more viscous. It's almost more buttery. It's almost like a heavy cream type feel.
Yep.
It is fantastic. Renee?
Yeah, I like this one a lot. I mean, I would give it a blue also. And one of the things I was talking to Kenny about, that you get to taste a slight yeasty taste to it. It's like when I used to brew my own beer and we would have yeast. We would filter some of it, but you'd always wind up with some yeast in it, and you get that slight yeasty taste. I think that's what that flowery feel that you're coming. That's what that is, and it tastes great. It's a great whiskey.
And here's the really funny part. So we don't want to go too deep into this because there are some things we can and some things we can't talk about, but pretty matters is the theme of this week's show. That bottle is it's straight up pretty.
It is.
And what's beautiful about it is that someone else made them make it this pretty. So for those who don't follow industry trade, redemption bottles have changed in the last 2 years, as you said, Kenny. One of the reasons they changed is because someone, we're not going to mention any names, claimed that the bottles were too similar to their bottle. And
you mean it had a bottom and a top and a middle?
pretty much, yeah.
And a cork.
And a cork.
You can file suit for anything and everything.
Isn't that the truth? Well, long story short, an executive decision was made and Redemption went the high road and said, you know what, look, we're going to take what's inside the bottle. We're going to show you how pretty it is on the outside. And that matters. I mean, how much does presentation matter when you go to buy a bottle of whiskey? Anybody?
I mean, presentation matters for everything. Otherwise, you wouldn't dress up for your wedding.
Well, that, and you go into the whiskey aisle, my God, you know, with thousands of bottles to choose from, you need something that just stands out to you.
And Kenny, I'm going to ask you because I know you've got the numbers. My guess is with the bottle change, you've probably seen a little bump because that's typically what happens when you go through some of those branding changes, and it's hard to gauge.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this. We are trending back to a very positive position. Having to change bottles left us without product in the market for about 4 months. So we did take a dip from that. But it's the regard for the brand was there. And when we were back on the shelves, people started buying again. And we're almost back to the level where we were before, and we are trending to continue upward.
What I really love about what Redemption does is they take those bottles that would be unobtainium if there was another label on it. I mean, let's all face it. If there was one of maybe 4 or 5 distilleries that everybody knows, the big 4 or 5 names, and they said, oh, we came out with a Surly, where would they price this? They would price that at $200, $250 a bottle, more than likely, because they would get it on a limited release. Instead, what you see is a company like Deutsche Family that has Redemption, where they put out their rum cask finish was fantastic, right? Their cognac cask finish is delicious. They do the things that higher priced labels typically do, but they execute it just as well, and they just make it available to everybody, and that's what we love.
Well, and they're willing to roll the dice, because they were the first to bring this to market. It was something different. And look, the first time I had this, Kenny brought some. And I was like, Surly? Like, what is Surly? And he went into it and described. And I was like, okay. And it didn't stick. But the bottle's pretty and it drinks really good.
Yeah.
So that's why I'll buy another one.
Yeah, that plane just went right over, huh?
It was almost 4 years ago, by the way.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was 4 years ago.
It was at least 3 years ago that we had the first iteration, batch 1 of Surly.
I thought it was about a year to a year and a half, maybe 2 years that you brought it. But I mean, still, I know it had been a while since you brought that first iteration.
We were not
here.
going to release this again until we got into our permanent bottle scenario. But we're still a year and a half out from settling on that. So we decided not to wait any longer because this is technically our interim bottle.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then this one might be collectible to people who collect.
The old one is now
bottles.
collectible, and this one may become collectible.
I don't see how people can have a bottle that sits somewhere unopened like that, though. It just
This is a difficult one to let sit because if you know the liquid that's inside the bottle, man, you don't want to pass this up. It is truly unique as
the
far
only
as bourbons
person
and
that I
whiskeys go.
know that would pass this up is Walker. That's the only one.
Yeah. Yeah, especially when he's puking the next morning.
Yeah.
As you're recording a show and he's having to get up and run to the bathroom to make sure that he doesn't puke on the mixing board. I'm
Hasn't
just
happened
saying.
yet, Walker. I got you. You're good.
If you hear that sound, it sounds like a cat licking itself in the background. That's Walker licking his wounds. So,
And why do the cats want to do that at like 3:30 a.m.?
oh man, like my wife's dog
Without
does
fail.
that crap, and it'll sit at the foot of the bed. Next thing you know, poop is on the ground. Just lessons learned.
I figured that Walker was doing that at 3:30 in the morning because that's when he finished that cigar and had to be sent home. Happy birthday, Walker. Yeah, we love it. All right. Kenny, any parting thoughts on this Redemption Sir Lee?
It is a limited time release. It comes out once a year. It is in the market right now. You get it while you can because we did not get a ton of cases in Louisiana. I think we got 17 total 6-packs for the whole state.
Oh,
When they are gone, they are gone. So, you can find it locally at some of your favorite places, including New News. They definitely have a 6-pack of that that they ordered last week. So they may or may not be there still. And then some of the other bigger retailers that I won't name.
yeah. And first of all, the fact that the entire state only got 17 6-packs. I mean, let's do some real quick math. That's 102 bottles. Yeah. That is not a lot of whiskey to go around the state of Louisiana when you consider how we drink whiskey in the state of Louisiana. It just isn't.
No, it's how we drink whiskey here.
Well, this is also true. But this is the other big thing. So if you're listening on the radio and you want some of this and you miss it because you don't download Implicit Bias on podcast or find us on our socials, on X, on Facebook, on YouTube, guess what? That's a great reason to go out and make sure you subscribe because our subscribers got this episode easily 24 hours before you did, if not a full 48 before this hits terrestrial radio. So somebody got a head start on everybody else to making sure that they could find this Redemption Sir Lee. Walker is managing to somehow raise a finger as he lays on the floor in the corner. We're going to go ahead, take a break. We're going to come back. Hopefully Walker will have thrown up. He'll feel better. And we'll bring you the final segment of hour 1 of this week's episode of Implicit Bias. It's an absolutely wicked episode of Implicit Bias. I'm your host, Kavan Bordelon. As we start to wrap up hour 1, we're multiple weekly whiskeys in. Walker's in the corner puking from last night. It's been an absolutely fantastic, and it's actually a daytime recording of this week's episode of Implicit Bias. Coming to you from the Mr. Lester's Top Secret Podcast lair with the crew this week. At the bar, Triple H, Hold Harmless Harmon, Brian Harmon of DCG Insurance, Renee Girard, Louisiana's only certified master tobacconist of Piper's Haven, and of course, in the chair like mine, but on the other side of the table, he is the rustic renegade, Caleb Morse. We actually found a way to do this where we got to day drink, which makes it a little interesting as we sample our weekly whiskeys, because we will have no less than 5 before the end of this show.
Threaten me with a good time.
Well, as we sample weekly whiskeys, we're going to talk about the next 3 because we've already talked about 2 of them. But we're going to dive into one of the stories that is oh so important this week, and it's one that I couldn't stay away from, and by the time this episode airs, hopefully it will have passed a lot of people by. I say hopefully because I'm not so sure that it will. But I've got to give you the background. Last week, before recording our episode, I actually spent some time in New Orleans with my 86-year-old mother. Needed to go see her, needed to spend some time, work from her house, because I get to do that with my actual real job. But in that time, you find out that your parents start to watch TV in the way that they watched TV 60 years ago. They still think there's basically 2 channels. They only watch what's on the 2 channels, and whatever comes through those 2 channels is gospel. And I don't mean like a figurative gospel, I mean a literal gospel. Whatever they say on TV is so important, and it's always true, it's always facts, and that's what we always watch. What I found really interesting was what we could not get away from, because she has 2 TVs in her home, and those 2 TVs are usually on 2 different channels, and there was something that we could not stay away from. No matter what was being watched, no matter what daytime talk show was on, there was some terrible interview with Ariana Grande and another actress whose name I don't know about a musical that Disney has now converted to a movie. And when I tell you the press tour and the psyop was full on, it was full on. My mom actually looked at me and said, "Oh, this is a big deal." And my reaction was, well, why is this a big deal? Because these people pay to go on these shows to talk about a movie and it's being promoted. They are trying to create a big deal. And this is why pretty matters. Because the marketers, the people who are handling the production for the movie, the people who are handling promotion for the movie, they're all about making it pretty for everyone out there who's watching, putting a nice bow on it, and hoping that the actresses don't let too much out of the bag. Now, it might be a fantastic movie. It might be a fantastic musical. I'll be honest, I haven't seen it, but that's not the point. This isn't the only movie where this has happened. This has happened with every major production for the last 20, 30 years. But this one seemed to be over the top. And it just seemed to me that whoever was putting all this together was doing everything they could to make this as pretty as possible.
I get what you're saying. I do. And I saw the interview that you sent over.
No, okay, that's
Well,
one
that's
interview.
one. And I looked a little bit, and I've seen the advertisements and all that kind of stuff for it. And maybe it's just because I'm not a girl dad, but I have, like, no matter what they did, I was like, I have no desire to watch this. And whenever Ariana, that's how you pronounce her name?
Something like that. Ariana Grande, I believe.
Whenever she reached over and was like, let me get your tear, and wiped the other woman, who I have no clue what her name is, it did nothing for me. Nothing. And I'm sure that someone's like, oh, I should go watch this. This is the newest version of Oz. Look, the Oz that I watched when I was a kid was terrifying.
Yeah, it is.
Like-
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, you got flying monkeys and
Yes.
people trying to kill you and stuff.
And then then they had Return to Oz with the Wheelers and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Like, it got really creepy really fast. And this is not that. Like, if
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch anything with Wizard of Oz, that's what I'm gonna watch.
my daughter
Not-
went
yes.
and see it,
Yeah.
and she loved it. But it's a
Can
chick-
you
it's-
sing one of the songs from it?
No, I don't know it. I didn't go see it.
Well, wait, hold on.
But
That's
what
two
I'm
questions.
surprised-
Can Renee sing? And can he sing one of the songs
No.
from that one?
You know what I'm
You know Bailey
surprised
came
about?
back and she was singing.
No, she would. Well, no, she didn't sing it. But I was amazed that Captain Kirk didn't show up because there's a green in it. You know how Captain Kirk on Star Trek, he would do
Oh,
anything.
he always liked the green women.
Yes,
yes.
I mean,
yes.
I'm surprised that Captain Kirk wasn't there.
Okay, that is a
Because that
really,
woman is green.
That is a really vague Star Trek reference, which
Well,
is actually kind of funny.
And I'm old.
Yeah, this is true.
I was there when it first came out.
You are. But I guess and Brian, do you want to chime in on your initial reaction if you got to look at this at all?
I had seen them. I saw there are multiple interviews. It's just over the top, overly emotional. I don't know. It's more of the. It was more of a reminder as to why Trump won the election than anything else. I don't want to go into this particular topic. I am a girl dad. My girls do like Ariana Grande. I don't know who that other lady is in the interview. I don't care to ever know. Thankfully, I won't be seeing it. I've got a great wife who will take them to go see it if they so desire. But it's just it's a story, not the story. It's just the narrative that's being played in front of the television audience. It's more of what we've discussed on this show. Y'all discuss it endlessly. It's just more of the same.
What happened to the heyday of movies whenever they were like, you know what? Pontiac's got a new car out. Let's go burn some tires. Eastbound and down they went, right? What happened to those days?
Well,
But that showed that Hollywood was bought and paid for back then because they tried with Volkswagen and all those other people and Ford, and they were like, no, we're not doing that. Pontiac was like, you know what? We'll use this whole movie
Yeah.
to market
to
our
sell
Trans
a
Am.
Trans Am.
Yeah.
And that was 1979. No, that's a lie. 1977.
Yep.
And you can watch. Hollywood is bought and paid for. The actors and actresses are bought and paid for.
Well-
they don't brush their teeth like the rest of us. They brush their teeth with someone else's arm, with toothpaste that is given to them, and a special toothbrush that they get paid to use.
Take it a step further. Number one, start to think about the NFL commercials and Uber Eats,
Well, yeah.
where you've got Matthew McConaughey and he goes, well, the NFL is just a tool to make you want to eat. And the guy's like, what do you mean? It's Christian McCaffrey. He says, what do you mean? And he goes, think about it. Feed me more. And he goes through all the different things. And the guy says, oh, it's not that. And he goes, Jerry, what are you eating? And it's Jerry Rice. And he goes, rice? And they admit that they're there. And they're like, yeah, and it's a food commercial where they're walking you down the rabbit hole of how they're using marketing to get you to do it. And then it doesn't just stop at entertainment. Politics is absolutely bought and paid for 99%. I mean, let's see. Beyonce made what, $10 million to show up and give a 2-minute speech?
Eminem as well.
Eminem, he only got paid like $500,000. Megan Thee Stallion got like $2 million to come out, do one song and leave. And then you find out that a lot of the interviews that were done by a particular campaign were paid for.
Yeah, they're estimating over $10 million were paid to entertainers to endorse.
And that
Kamala.
doesn't count the paid for interviews.
Oh yeah.
where she paid to go on someone's news show or whatever and get interviewed and use that, which means, and guess what? When you pay for something, if I were to pay you to interview me, or let's rephrase this, you're all business owners. If you were to pay me to interview you about your business and what you do, what would you probably do before we sat down for the interview?
Tell you how I want the story to go.
Oh yeah. I'd say I want you to cover this. I'd give you a list of things that we need to cover.
And that's because you want to come out in the right light.
Right.
And I used to run into this with people all the time when I first started advertising, before I even owned a business. And we were advertising, my wife and I were like Hobby Lobby. And the woman's like, I know that voice. You're on the radio. I'm like, yes, ma'am. She goes, oh my God, I'm meeting someone famous. And I'm like, no, ma'am. Like, I pay for that. That's not fame. That's advertising. She's like, well, it's the same thing. It is not the same thing. You know, like the commercials we put out and all that, like, and granted, we do our things differently for the shop because we want to educate the public, but commercials are meant to catch your attention and to bring you into somewhere.
Yeah.
And the line between what is a commercial and what is news has become so blurred. That's why we tell you, look, we'll tell you what's sponsored on this show. We'll tell you what's paid for. We have no issues with that.
Have y'all brought up before the need to disclose paid spokesmen?
So there, we have not. If
Because
you
that
want,
hasn't happened with the celebrities that y'all were discussing.
which is really interesting. Well, now the question becomes, where do they have to disclose it? Can they disclose it on a social media post? Can they disclose it on a website, which is the About Us page, which is buried in the website, which says, hey, Megan Thee Stallion was paid $2 million to appear here, and they put it on the 15th page in minuscule type at the bottom of the page on a website that nobody's going to go look at in the first place.
Yeah, and I guess that checked the box, and that's why we do, in fact, know that they were paid spokesmen. So it's probably not in violation of any laws. It was just something I had come across.
But it's a great question.
You know, I think what they should do is like the political ads. Any political ad, they have to show you that who paid for it or what. You know, it's like they should do the same thing with celebrity, like they call it celebrity endorsements. Yeah, they didn't got endorsed by a check.
And look, I'm willing to bet that I don't know because I haven't seen anything come out, but I'm willing to bet that there was some sort of financial inducement for Hulk Hogan to show up, some sort of financial inducement for Kid Rock to show up on the other side. I mean, I'm not going to say that this thing happens on one side of the aisle. This is politics. The point of this isn't to say one side gets paid, the other doesn't. The point is to say they're all trying to make it look pretty, and they're all getting paid. Every single one of them is getting paid. Politics is no longer politics. It's now entertainment. And that, to me, may be the real big takeaway from the month of November.
Well, and that circle is so different. Like with us here, except Walker, if we go somewhere like, hey man, I need help. You know, you want to come and move a bed, do this, do that, or
Yeah, because Walker won't work.
quick photo op or
Not
whatever. Right?
today, especially.
Yeah, you're like, look, hey, you want to come help me? Yeah, sure. You know, I'll go out of my way to help you. In that circle, I'll be there. It's $150,000 for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's all they do is they pass money back and forth because they don't have friends. They have time that they've paid for with people.
Here's the other
It's got to
reason.
be lonely.
It's show business, not show friends.
Yep.
Correct. And here's the other reason why pretty matters. If the Harris campaign or the Trump campaign had paid Weird Al Yankovic to show up, does anybody care?
Oh yeah, a lot of people like Weird Al.
Yeah, but not the millions
He's
and
not soft
millions
on the eyes.
of the Rock's fans.
See,
no.
it's too bad Don LaFontaine is dead because he would have done great in a world. You know, he made the trailer sound good.
He did.
They don't do it like that no more.
But my point is, they have to put it in nice packaging because when it's easy on the eyes, people pay attention. When it's easy on the eyes, people give you the benefit of the doubt, which is why we have to work so hard on the show if you're watching us to get you to believe us or not believe us because we're not. We know it, and we don't care. But what we do care about is that if you're only catching hour one in your market of implicit bias, call the radio station, tell them you want hour two, and go find us wherever you get podcasts. Subscribe, like, follow X, YouTube, Facebook, and come back because hour two is always more fun on Implicit Bias. More weekly whiskeys, more implicit bias, hour two rolling on. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. We are in the Mr. Lester's top secret podcast lair. That's the TSPL for the initiated. and we've got a great crew for you here this week. One of the things that we're going to do that's actually thoroughly enjoyable is we're just cutting Walker completely out of the show because he drank too much last night before we recorded this episode. He's not in a state to be on, so Walker, sorry, not sorry. Let me introduce you to the rest of the crew here this week on Implicit Bias. At the bar, we've got Triple H, Hold Harmless Harmon of Dupree Carrier Godshot, Louisiana's only certified master tobacconist, Rene Girard. And of course, in the chair, sitting much like me, but on the other side of the table, he is the rustic renegade, Caleb Morse, as we bring you a post-Thanksgiving initial December episode of the show. So that means that we also have more weekly whiskeys that are available at Mr. Lester Steakhouse during the month of December, which you can see on the table here to my right, your left on the screen. It's the Heaven Hill Grain to Glass series available at Mr. Lester's, and we are just kind of sorting this one out. So, Caleb, we'll start with you. You decided to pour the straight bourbon whiskey?
Yes, sir. It's the Blue Label, the straight bourbon whiskey. I didn't look at the proof, but I'm guessing this is probably 90. I would say 90 proof, around that area. Soft, a little sweet. Man, I'm getting hints of bacon. Like, I'm getting hints of that applewood smoked bacon when I smell this and on the palate. This is pretty damn nice.
Okay, first
This
of all,
one-
ring the bell for a reason. Caleb has no idea what the proof is on this.
No.
Let's go to the bar, because Caleb's wrong.
What? Damn.
I'm thinking this one is probably 96.
No way.
On the proof?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. It's good. I like it. It it's got a slight sweetness to it. Very, very drinkable.
Very drinkable. Okay, Mr. Harmon, what are you thinking?
I'm gonna go a little heavier on the proof. I'm gonna say it's 100, maybe north of 100. It is subtle. It's an easy drinker. I agree. It's pleasant on the nose. It's pleasant. The front end's just as good as the back end. There's no heavy burn. I'm hoping it's on the higher end. But to be such an easy drinker,
I love it. I love it.
There's-
Caleb is doing everything he can to stay away from that comment where you said it's just as good on the front end as it is on the back
Yeah.
end. He's trying not to say anything there. But guess what? Nobody's right. And Renee,
it went the other way.
Hold up. Let's call him the proof hound. Let's have him stick his tongue in the water.
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Walker,
Let's see if
what
Walker
is-
can. Walker, do you want to just take a whiff, Walker, and tell me what you think the proof is?
For everyone off air, blah, 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 blah.
Is the proof vomit?
For everyone off air, Walker is now
Your Latin is
inhaling.
terrible.
He's inhaling
Come on, Walker.
the
What?
glass, sniffing.
What did you say?
I said 90.
I said 95.
95
you
and
said
then
north
100.
of 100.
You said
and
right at 100.
I'm trying to
This
tell
has
you,
got to be low.
Based off of the conversation, we must all be high. So
I have to go 80.
107.
Really?
What?
This is 53.5% alcohol by volume, 107 on the proof.
This can be
Oh,
dangerous.
This definitely don't drink like a
No.
high
This
proof.
this
Man.
definitely goes in deep blue.
Yeah.
The Implicit Bias
Yeah,
Infinity
yeah.
bottle. There is no doubt about this one. It's
It's good.
Not
I
only
get
is
the
it
little
bourbon-
Frisons back here.
not only is it bourbony McBourbon, it is soft yet it is bold.
Okay.
It is sweet yet it has just enough sourness and spiciness to offset it.
Okay, I need to know what would that bottle sell for?
Oh,
And
Do you
Mr.
have any
Lester's?
idea? No. I'm talking on the open market.
I'll be honest, Renee, I've never seen it open market.
Oh, really?
Never seen it open market. I don't know what it goes for. I'm going to take a look and see if this has an age statement on it in any way, shape, or form. But I'm not getting a ton of.
If it's a single barrel, it's got to be 8 years because this is older. It's more dignified, more refined. The flavors are a little bit more robust. They're not all jumbled together. This is good one.
So this show's distilled 2017, so we're talking 7 years old.
there you go.
Huh?
Close.
So not 8, but so general rule, Renee. You remember the rule of 10?
Yeah.
So
$70.
But considering that this is a Heaven Hill
Yeah.
glass to grain series,
Yeah,
I
it's
would think this might be a little higher.
100, probably.
Here's what I'm gonna tell you. What I know is what this goes for at Mr. Lester's. Because Mr. Lester Steakhouse wants to make this whiskey available to all of our bourbon drinkers out there. Take a wild guess per pour versus the flight of all three.
I know what the flight of all three is going to be.
What's the flight of all three?
I mean, $20.
Nope.
35.
30.
I lied. It is 20. I'm sorry. No, actually, I'm kidding. The flight is 30.
That is more like
It is,
appealable to me.
it is a
because
$20 per pour.
Yeah.
So it's 20 per pour.
yeah,
it's
better
about
better
it's
to
about
get the
time they
flight.
ticked up their price a little bit because they've always offended me with it. And $20 for a pour of this is still a hell. Like
And
it's a
heaven knows you
bargain.
can't offend Caleb.
Yeah.
Gosh, we can't have that happen.
Hey, my niece has tried yesterday. So.
Apparently, multiple members
Yeah.
of everyone's family tried in some way, shape, or form over the holidays.
They
That
did
happened.
not succeed. I can tell you that
Yeah.
right now. I think they bothered themselves.
So what I know is this. What I know is that the Blue Label, the Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, I can't wait to get into the others. I know there's a rye here. I know there's some others. I'm really excited about tasting the others here, especially. And I might just do it through the month of December, which is what
Ooh, that'd
Mr.
be
Lester's
nice.
is going to do.
That'd be nice.
So we'll have multiple whiskeys we can taste through the month as you can go to Mr. Lester's and get this in those locations. So
Please don't dilly-dally.
no. As a matter of fact, if you haven't made your reservations probably by now, you might be in trouble. Just letting you know, book your reservations at Mr. Lester Steakhouse. You can find them. Go online, search Mr. Lester Steakhouse, Cypress Bayou Casino. They'll come up. And trust me, you will not eat a better meal between New Orleans and Houston. It is the only 5-star steakhouse, the only 5-star restaurant, and the only place that's really near, dear, special, in our opinion. Okay, so let's dive into some of the stories as we talk about pretty mattering. A lot of people liked the idea of a former special operator, a former Navy SEAL being elected to the United States Congress. And for those who actually looked at some of the stories I sent
know what you're
today,
talking
you
about.
know where I'm going with this.
Poor guy since that accident, man.
And you feel terrible for anyone who loses an eye, especially in service of their country.
Yeah, but ever since the injury, he views everything from the left point of view.
Oh, that was a nice setup. I got to give you credit. Ring the
Yeah,
bell. That was nice
yeah.
setup.
It's a low blow, I'll be honest.
Because for
with you.
those who know Dan Crenshaw, you know that he wears a patch over one eye, and that's why it's a. But the really odd part is this. The really odd part is that Dan Crenshaw and some of his policies and some of what he said have come out to be highly contradictory to what he allegedly claims are his running platforms. And most recently, Dan Crenshaw is getting community noted on X. And I say that with a beautiful, pretty smile because it is beautiful and it is pretty when you understand why he is being community noted. So let's talk about what the community note is. And it's this. There has been an idea that has been floated that I think is beautiful for all elected officials, that they can no longer trade stocks once they're elected. Now, why is that a beautiful idea? You know, let's face it, they went after the 45th president because he owned hotels, and those hotels had government contracts. That would, by definition, be a conflict of interest. So would passing a law that affects a certain business and buying stock or selling stock in said business before you pass the law. That, by nature, would also be a conflict of interest. And there are no investors on the planet, none, who are as accurate and as profitable as U.S. Congress when it comes to stock trading. So the initial offering of the law was that they can't do it. And Dan Crenshaw got highly upset.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, his stocks are up 44%. In this thing, he said he hadn't have more than $20,000, and he has like 300 and something thousand.
Which is when he
Yeah.
said, I don't have more than 20, it's a lie.
Well, and look, his net worth is not what a lot of other people's net worth is. Now, does that excuse any potential behavior? No. And look, I don't know Dan Crenshaw. I don't know his finances or anything else. But from a sheer like logistical point of view, I don't know how you would restrict congresspersons from participating in the stock market, because then you're restricting their right to free trade. But the fact that they would directly impact that number is a big deal, right? So it's how do we do that without being directly in violation of the Constitution and their legal rights?
Let's go to the bar.
Well, you know, it's just like when Cheney was there. He was running Halliburton at the time. Whenever they put him in, he had to
Divest,
put it.
essentially.
Well, they put it in a blind trust.
Yeah.
That he had no idea, no control of. That somebody else did that. And granted, Cheney wasn't the one signing anything. He was just VP. But Crenshaw, he's only been there like maybe 2 terms. So he hadn't been there long enough to get the war chest like Pelosi and all of those. Pelosi has made some serious money on stock deals because she passed laws that her husband owned stocks. And they made stupid millions of dollars. That's how these congressmen make millions of dollars in Congress.
Brian, you want to chime in on this?
Yeah, I'm in. That would be a step in the right direction should this law pass. Okay, we need to have term limits, and yes, they need the Congress, the people that make decisions that do in fact move markets should not have the ability to free trade. They sacrifice that right in order to be the decision makers that do in fact move markets.
but
the presidents do it, just like these Dick Cheney. Donald Trump had to put a lot of his they still crucified him for it, but blind trust, I'm not going to get into what's required, but I know it can be done. That coupled with term limits will send this country on the right trajectory more than most pretty much anything else I can think of at the moment.
Well, yeah, but definitely, I mean, term limits are a great thing, but then you can't just restrict their access, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to restrict close family, close friends.
Oh, yeah.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's how do you do that without impacting their constitutional rights and the right of free trade?
So
Because
here's
that's the problem. Because look, is it shady? Yes. Do I think it's morally and ethically wrong? Yes. Is it illegal?
it's ethnically wrong.
Well,
Sorry.
as long as they have the ability
Okay.
to either choose to run for office or not, I think the gray area is worth the investment in the country long term.
So do me a favor, ring the bell. And this is why pretty matters and pretty doesn't matter. This proposed law is an attempt to put pretty in front of our face and make it look nice and neat and all this good stuff. You know why? Because we don't need the law. Insider trading is already illegal.
Yeah.
This is an open and shut case. If I am sitting in the position to affect something and I buy or sell a stock right before I pass or have any of that happen, if I am in a position to know, it's insider trading. If the Securities and Exchange Commission would just do its job and prosecute lawmakers for insider trading as they have tried to prosecute everybody else, it's the fastest open and shut case you've got. The only problem is we'd be looking for about 400 new representatives and probably 80 or 90 new senators every year and a half.
Well, and I'm sure the SEC is funded through the budget. So they don't want to upset, the representatives who control the purse.
You mean don't bite the hand that feeds you?
Exactly.
Oh my
Exactly.
goodness. For shame.
This is again how pretty factors in, right? This is their effort to golden ratio, and we're going to go into that next segment, Caleb, but they're trying to golden ratio ideas so that you don't necessarily look at what's underneath it, you just look at what's outside of it.
And just a reminder, Martha Stewart has more street cred than Snoop Dogg because she went to the big house for insider trading.
Which brings me to, and it doesn't render me speechless, but it's a fantastic point, Renee. Ring the bell, because connecting that dot is what's important, and here's why. They put Martha Stewart in jail for insider trading.
Yep.
But Nancy Pelosi and her husband, who have perhaps the greatest stock investing track record in history, are running free and doing whatever they want.
One of the big bills was a tuna fishing bill. Who her husband is a major stockholder in, I don't remember one of the big canned tuna companies.
Please don't believe this. Go look this
He
up.
made stupid money when she passed that law.
So he made Walker money?
Oh, more than that.
Oh, okay. What's the matter, Walker? Little slow on the uptake today? Do something to cloud the brain last night that maybe doesn't have you quite as sharp as you normally are?
If only he would drink or sip that glass in front of him, your synapses would be going at 100 miles an hour again.
You made that glass.
I didn't
Knowing
make
I
that
wasn't
glass.
going to
I'm
drink
not a glass blower.
Oh,
I am not a glass blower. I
no,
don't
you
know how
weren't
to
going to
work
drink.
crystal.
Knowing I wasn't going to drink it just for you to have another glass to drink.
What?
Walker, are you still drunk? This is the question I have. Notice this
when
is
I
like
woke up this morning, I was.
this is like the first time on this episode that Walker has actually spoken other than 2 to 3 words, and they came out. as if he was trying to speak gibberish. I mean, he was speaking drunkenese for 30 seconds. Caleb, you like this. You drink yourself.
Take a sip. Take a sip. You'll be okay.
I'm all right.
I bet he said this morning, I'm never doing that again.
I'm sure
Which
he
is
did.
No,
That's
no, I didn't.
sure as
I'm gonna do it
blank.
tomorrow.
That's the way.
Do it again tomorrow.
We've all said that.
Oh, have we all said that?
Lessons learned.
And some of us, hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge at the bar, said it after doing the show.
Not to name names.
Oh, Walker, we were just having fun. Notice Walker has learned how to count as he's sobered up. We'll come back. More hour 2 of Implicit Bias right after this. Pretty matters on this week's episode of Implicit Bias. And man, sometimes I just wish that we rolled through all the breaks and took some of those things and made them like spot things here and there, because we got to Pretty Matters. Caleb was talking about once you've seen hummus made that you don't want to eat it anymore. And then somebody here in the Mr. Lester's TSPL said something like, well, wine is made the same way. And they said, oh, attractive young Italian girl or attractive Italian girl can make my wine any day. She can step on my grapes any day. And it just went south from there. I'm your host, Kevon Bordelon. This is Implicit Bias, first week of December. And man, we've got a fantastic show for you this week. Great crew here in the TSPL. Renee Girard, Louisiana's only certified master tobacconist. We're going to get a Stogie of the Month from him before the show is over. We've got Triple H at the bar with him, Brian Harmon. Caleb Morse, the rustic renegade. Walker in the corner, nursing a hangover. It has been tons of fun so far here this week. But Pretty Matters. We said it, we meant it. The big differentiator here is just please remember that pretty should never replace the actual value of a human being, because you can be beautiful on the outside and an absolute holy terror on the inside. Caleb, you mentioned the golden ratio as to what just affects us. So the first premise that I think we kind of need to get underneath with this is there are some things that no matter who you are, human beings find universally attractive, correct?
Yeah. And so the golden ratio goes back to Leonardo da Vinci, and even before that, it's 1.618. So it refers to just a mathematical equation for a distance between the eyes and the nose and the chin, and so forth. And it lays out this perfectly symmetrical diagram for the human form, especially the face. So when you get to like me, where you have a deviated septum, it throws it off, all that kind of stuff. But when you look at historically, the people that were in power all followed the golden ratio. When you look at our actresses and actors and everyone else, when you think of the most attractive of them, when we all talk about it or whatever, they follow the golden ratio. And this golden ratio is just been scientifically proven to instill, I guess, trust. You want to trust them more. You're more trusting of them. You believe them more. You question them less, and you follow them blindly because of the golden ratio.
Okay, but I guess here lies my question. Are we following a genetic marker? Or are we following
I think, well,
the actual people and what those people have historically instilled in other people?
yeah, and I think it's more of a genetic marker because,
I'm with you.
you know, just because someone has this ratio or is an attractive person doesn't mean they're a good person. And there are people that I've met in my life where they are genuine good people, and they're not easy on the eyes. And there are genuine like bad people that I'm sure are easy to the eyes. I mean, I've never seen Satan, but he was God's worship leader, and he was an attractive person, held a position, and the gemstones from the armor of God were within him, and he would reflect the light of God, which we would all deem as attractive, and sin is attractive.
I would actually argue that physically attractive people probably have a higher tendency to err on what we would deem as the bad side of things because they can get away with more.
That's a very valid point.
They can physically get away because their smile will get them out of trouble.
Oh,
right?
charm.
Their charm makes things happen easier for them. Life is just a little bit easier because it is within our nature to recognize physically attractive attributes. I mean, the bar want to chime in here? That would be a no. Okay.
Well, it's hard.
Renee's too busy drinking. Brian's like, I have no idea.
You know, it's hard to stay humble, and you know, if you live a Christ-like life, you want to maintain the humble status and remember that all glory goes to God and not to you. And if you're an imager of God, we're all attractive and unattractive because that is God's persona, whatever that is. But there are many, many people that just use their charm, their grace, their good looks, or whatever, and that's their status.
Well, and there's a lot of people that go, "Ooh, shiny," you know. It's just, and you know, you see a lot of guys. They look at see a woman and go, "Oh my God, that's just." But go talk to her. Oh my God, you wouldn't have a conversation with that.
Yeah.
You just there's empty.
Well,
It's
it-
empty inside.
And it goes
And
for,
there are
for
plenty
men
of
the same
physically
way.
attractive guys who, I mean,
Yeah,
you know, you look at a
same
guy
thing.
and you're like, man, that dude's probably an underwear model. And you talk to him and you're like, all right, what's your name? And he goes,
Yeah. Or
and
you
that's
know,
it.
he come to find out, you know, he's not a trustworthy person. He's
Not even
You know,
close.
he's a. I don't know if I can say this on the air, but he's a douche.
Yeah, you can say that on air.
I
It's
think that
okay.
word, yeah.
It's okay.
Walker didn't hear it anyway.
Yeah.
But now here's the fun part. And I say fun with all sarcasm. Look at the people who we choose to follow a lot of times as a society. So we established that a lot of people who are physically attractive and pretty matters, who maybe are not the best people, who maybe are allowed to get away with a lot of things, now go look at the people that we say, oh, they're so charismatic. Oh, that person is so nice. That person's so kind. Oh, that person, they're amicable. They're nice. They're good looking. They're attractive, right? And even down to the messaging. Oh, their messaging is so kind. Their messaging is so gentle. We don't want to hear the ugly truth. When the ugly truth, a lot of times, is what we need to hear.
Well, hold on. I had an epiphany.
Uh-oh.
Did it hurt?
If pretty matters, then why is The View still on the air?
Well, they got a couple of
Wokeism.
pretty ones. There's a couple of them that are pretty. They're brain dead, but they're pretty. The rest of them, yeah, I don't know why they're
Okay,
still there.
I'll tell you why. Because it is the messaging masked as pretty messaging. If you even, I mean, think about taking the whole pretty and what we're allowed to get away with down to the, this is the kind way to go. This is the nice way to
They're
go.
putting a bow on it.
They put a bow on the messaging and say, oh, we're the morally superior, right? We're the ones that are kind because you're Nazis. We're not.
Well,
And there are people who believe this.
Well, I mean, it goes back to, you know, all these commercials you see and everything. They hire pretty people most of the time,
Yeah.
and pay them good money to make commercials, and you believe it. Oh, or they'll do these what do they call them when they go out and pump their movie?
The press tours.
Yeah, press tours. You know, they talk about the guys sit there and they interview them and try to get a little personal with them, and they all have these nice stories. And that when you come to find out they're scumbags, but you know they never present that because it doesn't sell the movie that well. So you got to sell what they're doing.
You know, that's a valid point because what was the guy? He was on a ton of horror movies and was not an attractive man.
Oh, Robert Englund.
That's his name.
I thought you were going
from
to say
Friday, the Nightmare on Elm Street.
And
Yeah,
he
and
never
he's a
he was never the
super-
face of the movie.
but he played Freddy,
Yeah,
who was the main character.
yes, and he's from what I understand, he's a very
Yeah,
nice
he's
guy.
a phenomenal human being.
Right.
But he was never the person that went out and promoted the movies.
No.
And he was in a ton of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They did. I don't know, 8 or 9 or 10 of them.
Oh yeah, they had like Nightmare on Elm Street Part 375. I mean, I'm just waiting for the next one to come out because I'm sure there's another sequel coming. But this dynamic, I think, allows us to get fooled a lot of times because it just does. Pretty matters.
Yeah.
And it makes it easier on some people when maybe they don't deserve it. Makes it harder on some people when maybe they don't deserve it. But here's the flip side of this. Pretty to a point has to matter. And here's why I say that. A couple of gentlemen in here own businesses. The person you hire represents your business. And there is a pretty that you want being the face of your business. Doesn't have to be supermodel, but it also can't be Grok the troll that climbed out from underneath the bridge 30 seconds ago. What, Caleb?
I wasn't prepared for that.
I'm in trouble.
Whiskey was in my nasal cavity.
I'm in trouble because I'm the pretty face. We're in bad shape, man.
No,
I got my daughter that works for me, so
yeah, no, you
but she knows her stuff.
You
But it's
play
not-
your cards that were dealt very well. I notice you're on the radio a whole lot. So.
Yes,
But no,
exactly.
the whole point being, it doesn't have to be a supermodel that's representing your business, right? It doesn't have to be somebody who was gifted by God with just angelic looks. But they also can't show up representing your business in a way that you don't want it represented. Right? I mean, you can't have somebody show up and Renee, if your standard is no gauges, no facial tattoos. I mean, and it's not anything against somebody with facial tattoos, but
It's a
if that's what
standard.
your standards are,
is a
if that's
standard.
what your pretty is, you've got to have that pretty.
Yep.
Well, it goes back to when you look at high school, right? The popular kids in high school, you look at them now, and most of them are 3 times the person they were back then.
Literally, like you put them on the scale, they're 3 times that person. It's true.
And I wasn't a popular kid, I don't think, back in high
Right.
school. You know, I was a nerd of sorts and did my ROTC thing and all that. All I wanted to be as a soldier. But your physical attributes do have a certain amount of marker that
Yeah.
carries weight. And it's really hard to overcome them with aptitude, with knowledge, with honor, integrity, and so forth. But once you overcome that stigma with these very favorable qualities, man, it opens up a ton of doors.
And to be fair, the more attractive you are, the less that you have to worry about those markers in a lot of ways. The farther you get to the other side of the spectrum, the harder it becomes to overcome all of those things. But the reality is, it's about what's on the inside, even though pretty does matter, and you need to have a set of standards. You know what? Your standards just have to abide by your implicit bias, which means that we're coming back for another segment. Blowing some smoke on this week's episode of Implicit Bias. I'm your host, Kavan Bordelon. It has been a fantastic recording episode here in the Mr. Lester's TSPL. We've got Caleb Morse, the Rustic Renegade, here with us. Wave hi, Caleb. Put him on video for a sec. Okay, good. Now we're going to go to the bar. What are you laughing about back there, Aaron? I know you don't have a camera, you don't have a mic. You laugh. I know, I'm stupid. I'm sorry.
He's like,
can't
Caleb
help
just put food in his mouth. He's about to drink whiskey. Why would we do this to him?
Because we can.
Because it's fun.
Yeah, it is fun. And at the bar, we have even more fun. We have Triple H, who is Hold Harmless Harmon from Dupree Carrier Gottschall, and of course, Louisiana's only certified master tobacconist, Renee Girard. Renee, what's our stogie of the month for December?
I picked a fun one.
Okay.
The Esteban Carrera Chupacabra.
Ooh.
Natural.
I can say chupacabra.
Yeah.
I like the name.
Chupacabra.
I like the name.
Yeah.
It's like Lake Titicaca.
And wait, what's the first name at the front of it?
The Esteban Carrera.
So this is like the Marie Esteban Carrera, Manuel Noriega.
Chupacabra.
Chupacabra. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got a Nicaraguan Habano wrapper, which is just Habano, but they grew it in Nicaragua. And then the filler and binder is Nicaraguan. It's what would be called a puro, which is pure, all from one country. Excellent cigar. It doesn't get a lot of press. It's just, and it's not a lot of people that carry that cigar. But it's a great smoke. I mean, it's not purdy. You know, our theme this week is purdy. This one is not purdy, but it tastes fantastic.
But it's got a pretty name. And so
no, you just like saying chupacabra.
No, here we go. So just to make sure I got this right. This is the Manuel Noriega, Jose Valdez, Jose Cuervo Chupacabra, right?
No, Manuel Noriega's Panama.
Oh, okay. He's
Yeah.
Panamanian.
You need
kid.
to put that on a T-shirt.
It's-
Never trust a pretty cigar.
It's Daniel Ortega.
Okay.
He's the guy in charge of Nicaragua. So it's the
Okay.
Daniel Ortega, Manuel
Jose
Gonzalez,
Cuervo.
Jose
Chupacabra.
Chupacabra.
Correct
Okay.
me if I'm wrong, though, but like the chupacabra is not a pretty animal, right?
No,
So
no. it's-
what's unattractive?
You know what
about
it- you know what chupacabra-
Whoa. Ring the bell first of all. That's assuming the chupacabra is
Is
actually
it
an animal.
exists.
yeah, but you know what
Yeah,
chupacabra?
you know what? Everything exists. at
You
some
know what
level.
it translates to? Chupacabra,
Uh-oh. What, Renee?
Great cigar.
goat sucker.
Yes. Yeah.
It does.
Yeah,
As Chupacabra is a goat sucker.
I was waiting on a bad Renee joke right
No,
there.
no,
I was
no,
like, this
no.
is gonna go south. But
So
yes,
is it
goat
just-
sucker is what it translates.
Is
to.
the wrapper is the wrapper the leaf not pretty? Is it just the shape of it? Is it not a nice?
No, it's just, I mean, it doesn't have the fancy box. It doesn't have a fancy, shiny label.
Okay.
It's. I mean, it's a good looking cigar.
It's homely.
It's got a pigtail cap,
Great
which
personality.
it looks like, it's a little twirled up
yeah.
cap, and then it's got kind of a shaggy foot. It's not a true shaggy foot.
So it's not all lit out.
The wrapper leaf, the wrapper leaf comes to the end, and then they kind of fold it over instead of just like some of them that they shorten the wrapper leaf and it's just kind of rough on the end. This one, they fold the wrapper leaf over the end, over the foot of the cigar.
It's an Audi, not an innie.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, exactly.
I really didn't want to think about that with regards to a cigar. That just brought back a bad Bill Clinton reference, and I don't want
Chupacabra.
anything to do with that. But no, that sounds like a great cigar. So something that's mild. And look, Renee,
I know, and you didn't
I'm
get
gonna
your
put it
cigar.
out there. I know. I'm gonna put it out there. My schedule has just been so
I
off
mean,
kilter.
we were at Winter Implicit dinner, and you called me up and
I
says,
know.
man, bring me a cigar. I did, and you were just so busy, meeting and greeting. He didn't even have time to come get his cigar.
Yeah, Renee gave me one, and it knocked me on my ass.
Yeah, he had to.
It was
he
good.
smoked
though.
about half of
yeah.
it.
And when I started noticing I was getting lightheaded, I was like, I didn't drink this much. And I looked at my hand and I was like, Renee got me.
Speaking of
Now Tug wasn't there, but Matt was there, and I hooked him up. And
yes, yep.
he sucked that one up.
Speaking of things that are in the air, and I'm letting that comment go.
Yep.
Speaking of
That goes
things
back
that are
to
in the
creamy
air,
mouthfeel.
yes, it does. Speaking of things that are in the air, this is an article that I had to send over, and the implications of what this means are so vast. A Florida lawmaker has submitted a law that prohibits aerial intervention into the climate in Florida.
Which would be cloud seeding, it would be chemtrails, it'd be all kinds of things.
Again, assuming chemtrails are real, but I mean, we have RFK who's basically said he's going to ban the spraying of chemicals into the atmosphere, which you would think would be a chemtrail, correct?
One would assume
Well,
as such.
I mean, I thought EPA already did that because they control all of the emissions from manufacturing and everything else. That's chemicals going into the atmosphere.
Well, if they did that and they did a good job, we'd all have nuclear power.
So let's also hold on. Wait, what?
Nuclear power, your main byproduct in the atmosphere is just steam. Right? You have the uranium and the plutonium waste.
Okay, I see where
which
you're
is
going.
one thing.
Yeah, it took me a
But
second.
it's way more efficient and cost effective.
What you're saying is if the EPA was doing its job, the only power we would have would be nuclear power
yeah.
throughout the entire country. That makes sense.
Yep.
But here's the other thing, Renee. If the EPA was doing its job, the EPA doesn't necessarily regulate government, do they?
No.
There's no
They regulate us.
There's no one to
Correct.
check on the checker.
Yeah.
So here's what I find really interesting, and this is why, and we've talked about this on a show last week, states' rights are so important. So, look, I know that I have done a lot of different jobs in the past. I never told y'all about the time that I served as the valet for the man who owned all of the air over the entire city of Hong Kong, right? Because, no, I'm kidding. That's from a bad, Ocean's 12, 13 reference. He owns all the air over Shanghai, right? But the point is, somebody does own that air. Is it in fact the federal government, or is it in fact the states
No, I would think it's
who
state.
owns the airspace over its own state?
I would think it's state.
So this is why I think this is a really interesting conversation. Go ahead, Brian. I'll let
Well,
you.
the Florida law is in response, and I had to look this up. I read into it as soon as you had sent it to me. It's in response to it's either a federal statute or law. Excuse me for confusing the two. That does say the federal government does have a right to, in essence, spray chemicals in the air that may or may not involve the particular state in question. So that's why and Tennessee had done something a few months ago as well. That's similar to this, but and I didn't know that even existed. So this does break down into a state's rights compared to federal rights, in my opinion. I just want to make sure too. I hope all the listeners understand the chemtrails compared to contrails. Contrails are an actual atmospheric situation
Correct.
based off of humidity content in the air, warm air coming in contact with colder air, humidity contents, how long the contrails stay. I just want to make sure
Check
all
this
of
out.
that. And y'all did have, and I was very jealous. Y'all had a very good contact show where y'all were speaking on this, and I'm sitting at my home drinking my cocktail, going, "I should have been on this show." At controlling hurricanes and things like
He's sitting
that.
down
Yeah.
with his Encyclopedia Britannica, like
Dude, he got a
Page
PhD.
37, like,
he got a PhD in environmental astrophysics like overnight.
So,
This is
y'all,
impressive.
Y'all are looking at someone who was accepted to a meteorology department, St. Louis University. Now, did I
What?
pursue that?
You
Yeah,
wanted- you
I
wanted to be a news guy?
meteorologist.
Dude,
That's
you
right,
wanted to
yeah.
be wrong
not
all the
news.
time?
I wanted to be.
No,
wanted
50%.
I wanted to be right
50%.
50% of the time and keep my job. That was my goal. But I took one look at the mathematical curriculum and said, I can't do that, especially at $30,000 a semester. This is crazy. Go general studies. It is for me.
But it's why I wanted to go here, because there's a huge states' rights argument versus the federal government. And honestly, if the federal government has the statute that says we can do this, well, who's to say the federal government isn't doing it?
Yep.
That's the big thing. That's the big
It exists for a
implication.
reason. It exists for a reason.
The law is being created because someone's obviously doing something.
Well, and normally the federal government doesn't come into play unless it's crossing state lines from one state to the other, interstate. That's when the federal government kicks in on stuff like this. But why the hell are they spraying stuff in our air to start with? You know, what's to say that, you know, the ozone is being depleted by aerosol cans? No, it's the crap you're spraying in the air to try to control the weather. It's crazy.
What I love about this conversation, number one, is there is not one person here who has looked at it and gone, yeah, the government's not trying to control the weather. That's just dumb. Everybody pretty much accepts that the government or governments are doing something somewhere to try and manipulate weather. And they've been cloud seeding since the 40s, to be fair.
Well, the rumors are going out since Katrina that, you know, the government is the one that directed Katrina into New Orleans just so they could totally destroy the city.
And I think that none of us would argue that the government's not just trying to control the weather, but they're trying to control the people as well.
We already knew
Isn't
that
that
with COVID.
Isn't that so people create government to control other people. That's what the social contract is all about. It's I agree to behave by these rules as long as I can control you and get you to behave by the same rules. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And you want to just take that extension into, well, we want to try and control the environment. We want to try and control the land. We want to try and control, you know, any biological entities on the land. We want to control, you name it.
Now, this brings up a neat topic. The government keeps pushing, we need to stop this because of climate change, climate change, climate change. Well, what are they doing with this spraying stuff in the air? Our government is trying to change the climate and blame it on us?
You know what they're trying to change? They are trying to change, and they're trying to blame it on us. That we got to take a break and come back with one more segment of this week's episode of Implicit Bias. Things are happening on this week's episode of Implicit Bias, and they're just going on in the world. I'm your host, Kavan Bordelon. This, the final segment of this week's episode, and man, I got to tell you, things are moving. And I don't mean like moving like it's been a rough couple of weeks and you needed some of those stool softeners moving. I mean like moving, like things are actually happening in the world. Let me introduce you to the crew real quick before we do that. At the bar, we've got Louisiana's only certified master tobacconist. You can get the Jose Cuervo Manuel Noriega Chupacabra cigar at his shop, which is our cigar of the month. It's a Chupacabra, the other Hispanic name.
Esteban Carrera.
Esteban Carrera. Okay. So Stephen Portia. All right. Yeah. And then at the bar with him, we've got Triple H. He is Hold Harmless Harmon of Dupree Carrier Gotcha. And of course, the Rustic Renegade, as always, here in the TSPL. And a treat for you. Say hi, Walker.
Hello.
See, drunk Walker can't even follow instructions.
No. Hi, Walker.
Yeah, drunk Walker can't even follow instructions. He is the hungover one this week.
You would think after his third glass of whiskey, he would be able to talk again.
Yeah, you would think. Hair of the dog. and
Except
just
he
won't do
didn't
it.
have one yet. He refuses. He sniffed, but didn't refuse. No
you-
hair of the dog for him.
Did you promise Kennedy you wouldn't drink again?
Ever.
No.
No.
All right. So this when I say things are happening, this is what I mean as we come to you from the Mr. Lester's Top Secret podcast layer. Those who can see us Pretty matters. We're not pretty. We know it, and we're dealing with it. But things are happening. There are a lot of people who currently, right now, are speculating in a lot of markets. There are people who are speculating in the crypto market, looking at XRP, looking at things of that nature and going, there are some things happening in the banking world, wondering if that's going to be eventually a new currency. There are people speculating that, we might see the end of the U.S. Department of Education, which is a promise that was made by our newly president-elect. Then there's also a bill that would abolish the Fed. There is a bill. It's got to make it to the floor, but it has been introduced, and it would abolish the Fed. Now, if there's a wish list that I have of what can happen in the next couple of years, abolishing the Fed is probably number 1 or number 2 up there. It's way up there.
So what does that mean? That we would go back to some precious metal standard,
correct, or some sort of really secure, non-government held digital currency, XRP. I mean, there's
was
all.
it Carter? What president was it that
Nixon.
It was Nixon.
Well, it was Nixon.
No.
It was
No,
Nixon who
it
pulled us off
started.
the international gold standard.
No, it was someone else. That they
It was
sat
Carter
Down, it was
that-
Carter.
it
and
was
he
Carter
said
that-
he doomed the American people to a life of servitude.
Well,
afterwards.
but that's when we could buy gold again.
No,
Yeah.
that was way earlier. I could have sworn that was with the initial inception
what
of the
was the
Fed back in
island?
like 1913,
What was
Jekyll
the-
Island.
What was Jekyll Island with J.P. Morgan and Chase?
Yep.
The Rockefellers.
That was Wilson.
Yep,
I
it
think
was
that was
Wilson.
Wilson that
was
started.
Wilson.
That's who it was.
Yeah, Woodrow Wilson started the Fed thing,
Oh, I sound like an old man.
I'm
saying that.
starting to believe a
but
little.
it was Roosevelt, wasn't it? Roosevelt
believe
that
it
pulled
was.
us off the gold
Teddy.
standard.
I believe it was.
Yeah,
I
was it
believe it
Teddy or-
was.
yeah,
I
it was
believe it was Teddy.
No. It was Franklin.
It was Franklin.
Yeah, it was FDR that pulled us off of the gold standard, and then, it was.
All right, we're gonna do this. We're
Jimmy
gonna
Carter
Google.
that came
We're
up.
gonna Google which president pulled us off
As
the gold
Triple H
standard at
has
the bar.
20 pounds of lead around his neck. He's like, no.
Yeah.
Precious metals.
But here's the.
I believe it's Nixon. It was during the Nixon administration, and Henry Kissinger had a lot to do with that. And it was essentially, instead of tying the U.S. dollar to gold, it moved it over to oil.
Oil, and it was percentages. It was
Definitely
interest rates
speaking
and
above
everything
my
else.
pay grade, but that's
Yeah.
what I remember.
Well, look, Tug's over there doing nothing at all.
I see that. He could have helped us
Yeah.
out by
He
doing
could
some quick
Google
research
this right
right there.
now.
Like Google. But regardless, I know
Walker's
that
not doing a damn thing either.
the Fed was created circa 1913, 1915, 16, 17.
Yes.
We came off the gold standard in the U.S. not long after that, because I believe it was the early 1920s that Americans were turning in their gold,
Yep.
The late,
and then it was revalued.
And
I
then
got
all of a
it.
sudden was
I
worth
got
so
it.
much.
Early 1920s, from the late 20s to 32, as well as from 44 to 71, the U.S. was unilaterally terminating the convertibility of U.S. dollar to gold. So it was from 20 to basically 71.
Okay, so all of this to say, the big question is, who was actually running the Fed? Who owned the Fed? Everybody thought Americans owned the Fed, when that is not the case.
No, the Federal Reserve is a privately owned entity by
Morgan Chase.
a
It's a
group of
bank.
investors.
J.P. Morgan Chase being one. Well, okay, hold on. We say.
the government-
Rothschild.
Oh, Renee,
Yeah.
ring the
The
bell,
Rothschilds.
Renee, the Rothschild
The
banking
government
dynasty.
printed the money, gave the money to them, and then they loaned the money back to us at an interest rate. Look, if you as an American citizen don't know this,
It's jacked up. But here's why I say I think things are happening.
Oh,
The Rothschild family has been rapidly de-Rothschilding on this planet for the last couple of years.
well, that's what happens when you keep your family tree straight.
Yeah. It's a
this
blade
is
of
true.
grass.
This is true. We have seen, but I mean, very recently, on the 333rd day of the year, in a 33-minute fire
Yeah.
with 45 firefighters putting it out, the latest Rothschild just passed away. Now, look, if you go dig those numbers up,
Well, look-
don't trust us as to why they're important. Let's just say that there's the masonry on the house might have had some issues. Just leave it at that.
I looked into the 45 firefighters, and based off of the square footage of the mansion and its close proximity to the neighbors, that was an appropriate amount of response. That's my contribution to.
But my point is this. My point is we are in a time of change regardless of whether it's by design or whether it's by happenstance. And there's just so much of it going on so quickly that I almost can't believe it's by happenstance because as a police officer once told us when he was on the show, coincidence after coincidence after coincidence doesn't necessarily just become a coincidence. Now it's by design.
Yeah.
And what we are seeing is we are seeing lawmakers introducing bills to abolish the Fed, which is what would keep a banking family running for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Right? We are seeing a lot of implications around BRICS. Brazil, Russia, China, India, China, South Africa, who were on and want to go back to a gold standard. We are seeing a lot of buzz around XRP and the ISO 20022 standard that banks are now having to take over, which is allowing XRP to all of a sudden surge in value because it's the only one that is authorized and is trackable, traceable, which would put an end to money laundering and things of that nature.
One of the things I don't understand, and our current president-elect, drill baby drill. Why don't we go to the oil standard? Because according to all the word out there, we have more oil than anybody else in the world.
Well, and if we did it right, we would do oil and natural gas.
Yeah.
Because Texas,
well,
Louisiana, Mississippi, the Gulf Coast.
Well, again,
natural gas.
That goes back to the some of the now Henry Kissinger is known for a lot of things, but the work that
You mean
he
like
did during
eugenics? I'm sorry.
the work he did during the Nixon administration did tie the dollar. World trade is still to this day conducted. This is the point of BRICS that you just brought up. They're trying to get the world off of the dollar as the world currency when it comes to natural gas, when it comes to oil. So the weaning of the U.S. dollar off of the gold standard ended during the Nixon administration, and it basically became an oil standard worldwide.
So that's why it's called the petrodollar.
Right.
What I will offer as to why you don't go to oil or natural gas is if you're going to a currency of this nature, it's got to be something that's accepted and at least has some sort of a level playing field for a lot of countries around the world.
A non-consumable?
So a non-consumable, a durable good, something that sticks around forever, which is something we don't want you to believe us on. We want you to go look up and figure out on your own. Something that is non-consumable and always there, like your favorite Saturday radio show / podcast. Implicit Bias. We'll see you in 7.